everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your co-hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, man. What's up, bro?
Big day that affects both of us, man. Wow, some
huge
with the Dolphins, and then obviously how it affects the Eagles. The Eagles got involved. Bro, where do we begin? I heard the Dolphins they traded the third overall pick that they had in this year's draft to San Francisco. In return, they got the number 12 pick in the first round this year, a 2021 third round pick. So this year they got that as well. And they got a first round pick in 2022 and 2023. That was in the Dolphins deal with San Francisco, which came as a surprise because it almost makes you think, are the Niners not committed to Garoppolo? But that's a whole other conversation. Right after that, the Dolphins dealt again with the Eagles, and they sent that 12th round, that number 12 pick that they got from San Francisco in this year's draft to the Eagles, and in return they moved back up to number 6 in this year's draft. Whoa, bro! How did the Dolphins get this much with the number 3 pick this year? It's highway robbery, bro. It's crazy what they're doing down in Miami right now.
Well, I mean, I got to be honest with you. The trade actually for the Dolphins part doesn't surprise me.
Oh, they've been wheeling and dealing, man. I mean, I'm a Dolphin fan. I'm so pumped.
Yeah,
I can't begin.
I mean, let's get into this and let's face it. The Dolphins, obviously, when you have a pick in the top 5, it's a coveted pick, and for the most part, there's a lot of quarterback-hungry teams in this draft this year, especially. And there's about 4 or 5 quarterbacks that could go in the top 10. There's at least 4. So to me, this was a no-brainer for the Dolphins. The only reason I would see the Dolphins sticking at the 3rd pick is if they were taking one of those quarterbacks. The fact that they had let me finish. Hear me out. So, in my opinion, this signals that they are definitely in on Tua, because if they had the 3rd pick, they would not have traded out of it. They would have stayed at the 3rd pick. So my point is that them knowing that there's other teams that wanted, to trade up, they knew that this pick was very valuable. Now, obviously, I'm not discounting what they did because obviously they got the most out of it. I mean, the 49ers gave them – I mean, that's a huge package that they got.
Dude, they got the number 12 pick, a 3rd rounder, and first rounders in the next 2 years. That's highway robbery.
Well, no, trust me, I agree.
Wow.
Now, what did shock me is the fact that, I heard this news, and then like 15 minutes later, I'm like, did I just read this right? The Eagles traded the 6th pick.
Yeah.
And then I had to do a double take. I'm like, wait a sec. The Dolphins just traded out of the top 10 to get to, they got the 12th pick in that package. No, that's what I mean, but out of the top 5. And then here they are coming back into 6. Now, it makes sense to me now because what I think the Dolphins all along, now I'm definitely in the opinion that the Dolphins are going to get Jamar Chase. Or if they prefer Devonta Smith, the receiver, they're going to get one of the 2 receivers.
I agree.
This is definitely signaling that. And the fact that they got that much of a package and then only had to trade the 12th pick this year and one of their first rounders from next year is unbelievable. Now, why don't you tell me what you think about the Dolphins, and then I'll kind of get into what I think.
Since Brian Flores has been the head coach in Miami, nothing ceases to amaze me. I mean, the Dolphins, they've shown their loyalty be damned. I mean, Brian Flores brought in all his guys that were friends with him as coaches and has cut ties just as fast as he's brought them in. I mean, they're just in it to win it. It's a very cutthroat environment to get better and better. I mean, that's why it was so easy to think that they might not be sold on Tua the way things have been, because they've had short leashes and Tua didn't light it up. this shows maybe they are committed to Tua. Either way, they have so much draft capital, and they've just added to that capital. It's like I'm so mind-boggled. I'm so impressed. I mean, look at all the picks they just had last year, and now they're rich with picks again, and then they're rich in picks next year and the year after that. What's going on in Miami is like, bro, I'm on cloud nine. I'm on cloud nine. I mean, you're still getting a top 10 pick in this year's draft. Like you said, there's studs going to be there. Jamar Chase, I have a feeling they might be going that route. Maybe Devontae Smith, I agree. But the fallout, to me, extends well beyond Miami. I don't understand the Niners. The Niners, after making the trade, said that Garoppolo is their guy, but yet they traded into a spot to draft a quarterback. I mean, are they going to draft Trey Lance? Are they going to draft Justin Fields? They're going to draft Zach Wilson? I don't know what they're thinking.
Well, I can tell you right now that it's definitely a smokescreen. If they traded to the third pick, there's no way in hell they're not drafting a quarterback. So either A, they're going to keep Garoppolo as like a mentor, but I don't see it. I more than likely see them now packaging Garoppolo and, to another team that maybe doesn't get one of these good quarterbacks in the draft that really needs a quarterback. I don't know who out there is going to want Garoppolo. I for one, don't really think he's that good. That's just my opinion. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I think he's good, not great. He's, a little better than average. So to me, I think it makes perfect sense for the 49ers. If they want a quarterback, they're going to get one of the top three, obviously, making this move. Now, the team that doesn't make sense to me is the Eagles.
You're very
and this is where now part of me really thinks that. Well, I mean, let's kind of go back a little bit. So there was a tweet earlier today. I don't know if it was Adam Schefter. It was one of the big main guys tweeted out, and then they kind of deleted the tweet and did a retweet, kind of rehashing what they had tweeted. And basically they were saying that the Eagles were interested in Zach Wilson, who, they probably thought might be there at number 3, but now I guess they're saying that I'm assuming he's going to get taken by the Jets. So then apparently now this was kind of like their plan B. Now, I don't know. To me, this move is kind of puzzling because, especially for a fan that was dying for a wide receiver, I wanted Jamar Chase more than anybody. I mean, I've been saying since day one when I knew that they had a top 10 pick that I wanted Jamar Chase. Now, let's face it, the Eagles wide receivers have been garbage lately. The last few years, we need a true stud wide receiver 1. Now, with that being said, the team that the Eagles have right now is not that good. So I think you kind of have to have some next level thinking when it comes to, this process. So just say they did draft the wide receiver. To me, I think if you're going to go with Hurts, it's a no-brainer to put weapons around him. So I'm puzzled if they are going to go with Hurts, why they would trade this pick. And that's why, to me, something's fishy here. To me, I think something's going on in the bigger picture. And the reason I say that is that there's not too many teams out there. So if the Eagles, let's just say the Eagles next year, Carson Wentz plays more than 70% of his snaps, the Eagles get a first-round pick next year. So that would actually give the Eagles 3 first-round picks in next year's draft. Okay? I don't think it's happened too often in the recent future, but when is the last time that a team in the NFL has drafted 3 first-rounders? And I'm going to tell you why, because there's a lot of money ramifications. If they draft 3 first-rounders, that means come contract time after the 4 years are up, you're going to have to pay 3 guys a boatload of money at the same time. It's not cap friendly, that kind of deal, where you draft 3 first rounders. So that for me, I'm just saying, as a fan, I'm looking at this and saying something's going on here. I think the Eagles are trying to stockpile picks. Now, I know this isn't going to be a popular thing for some people, and I know some people would say, "Oh, it's dumb if the Eagles do this," but I am not going to be shocked if the Eagles, because it's already been reported that they are interested in Deshaun Watson. I would not be shocked if they are trying to get enough picks to make some kind of a deal. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, I'm saying, okay, so maybe not Deshaun Watson, maybe it could be Russell Wilson. They're trying to do something with these picks. That's just my opinion. Now, maybe they'll prove me wrong and they'll draft the total board this year and not make any trades, and then next year they'll draft 3 first-rounders. I don't see it. I believe there's something else that's going to be coming from this. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong. I'm just a little mind-boggled as to why, you had a shot at one of the premier guys. Like, we saw what Justin Jefferson did last year, and Jamar Chase is apparently better than Justin Jefferson. So if that doesn't,
I hate saying he's apparently better. He hasn't proven anything in the NFL.
Well, he was better in college.
That type of talent.
He was better in college. So if he was better in college, then
that doesn't translate. Ron Dane was better in college than Ricky Williams.
I understand that,
but Williams broke every record, wasn't it?
My point is that
Ricky Williams' records. But
my point is that
I get your point.
Generally,
I get your point. I'm just saying back the truck back into the spot. That's all.
I got you, but generally in a top 10 pick,
I get it.
You're gonna
I'm breaking balls.
Let's face it. No, I got it. But my point is you're probably gonna get the guy I wanted, and that pisses me off. Okay, it pisses me off. I wanted Jamar Chase, and now the Dolphins are gonna get. A lot
of people think Miami loves Florida tight end Kyle Pitts.
Well, that's the wild card.
Miami taking him at number 6. So.
Well, that's the wild card, and I can be honest. Kyle Pitts, I don't consider him a tight end, just like I don't consider Travis Kelce a tight end. I consider Travis Kelce another wide receiver 1.
Oh yeah, so, maybe the best in the game.
So yeah, exactly. So if they do draft Pitts, they're going to be, it's going to be huge for Tua, because let's face it, Pitts can run every route. He can run the inside, the outside. He can do everything. So not that Jamar Chase can't, but I think Pitts actually. I heard some reports that the Eagles were interested in Pitts, but I got to be honest, they're not getting him now. If they would have moved back, if they would have moved back maybe to like the 9th pick, they might have had a shot at still getting it. But my point is, I am a little aggravated and pissed off right now. I'm sure I'll get over it, but I'm a little confused. And like I said, part of me thinks that there's got to be more to this. I don't see why the Eagles would make that kind of a deal. And let's face it. They didn't get. It's not a bad trade on the surface, but they didn't do what Miami did with their pick. Miami got a boatload.
That's the difference. You nailed it. You nailed it. The Eagles didn't get a return really a value. Miami got a huge return. I mean, it was basically like they put masks on and went in and robbed a bank. I mean, that's the return that they got. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but let's face it. Well, yeah, but I will say this much: when you're picking in the third pick, to me, there's a quarterback premium on that pick, so that's why they got more. But my point is, I think the Eagles could have got more. Is what I'm getting at.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm with you.
I'm not saying, but in the same sense, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying the Eagles made a terrible move, because let's face it. They're still getting the 12th pick, which isn't like – it's a first-round pick. And they got next year, so that's my point. So I think that's why I'm just saying I'm a little puzzled, but I guess we'll see after the draft happens obviously at this point, I don't know what they're going to do. If I had to say who I want now, look, I had to go back, and I didn't have time because I worked today. I didn't get a chance to really – kind of get prepared for this. I didn't really look at the draft board, but I do know that the Eagles need a cornerback. So to me, I'm hoping that they go corner. If they're going to keep this pick and they're not going to use it as a package, then I hope that they go cornerback, because I think if you look at the last couple of years, even with adding Slay, you're going to have look who they're going to have to face in the NFC East as far as wide receivers. On Dallas, you got Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. That trio is out of this world. Then you got the Giants, who just added Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, that was a big move.
You add Kenny Golladay, and you already have Slayton, and you have who's the other guy, Shepard, and you have Ingram, the tight end. So, and don't forget, oh, by the way, you're getting back Saquon Barkley. Remember, he was out last year.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to face them.
Yeah.
And he's good out of the backfield. He's not just a good runner. He does. Remember, he caught almost 100 passes 2 years ago, right?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely,
it was 2 years. And then
I don't remember if it was 100 passes, but yeah, he's
well, it was close. It was. I remember he was like he's very good out of the backfield. And then, oh, by the way, Washington just added Curtis Samuel, so now you got to face McLaurin and Samuel. You need a cornerback, so that's my pick. But
anyway, moving on. Less than a week away from opening day, Thursday, bro. Pumped up, baseball. Let's go. You ready?
Oh, definitely, man. We've already we've already spoke about this how many times?
But I'll tell you this right now. I'll let everybody know we just had our Sports and Metal Fantasy League baseball draft. The draft took like fucking 4 days. Longest draft I've ever been in, man. Oh my goodness.
The longest draft in history, right?
Oh my goodness. Oh, next year we're putting a timer on that son of a bitch.
Yeah. Well, for those that don't know, so we tried to do. We're actually this is actually a dynasty baseball league, which is something new for all of us. But I tried to model it after these dynasty drafts that they're doing in football on Twitter. And I'm in a couple of these leagues, and they have what's called a slow draft. Well, let's just say, yeah, they're pretty damn slow. Oh, my God. I mean, we had people drafting at work, saying, oh, I'm in a meeting. I'll be back in like a half hour.
And that turned into 4.5 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty nightmarish. But overall, it was very fun.
It was fun. It got my head in a space for baseball. So I'm pumped. I'm ready to rock.
And you just hit it on the head. That's what gets me pumped. It actually kind of got us in the fever for baseball. Yeah. Like, and actually getting to see some of these players. Like, that's the fun part about drafts. Like, it's just so fun. Even if you don't end up drafting as good as you thought you wanted to, or you went in with a certain strategy, and then obviously people start taking your picks. Like what happened with me and you and your son. Like Aaron and his son Gavin, for those of you who don't know, they sniped me like 6 times. Every time the picks were coming back to me, either Aaron or Gavin took my pick. So yeah, but it makes it fun because then it's something to brag about. And I did have to change my strategy like 3 different times mid-draft. So overall, I think we all have good teams, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. I know you are.
Very much.
When's opening day for the Mets?
Like I just said, Thursday.
Yeah, I thought it was Wednesday.
It's not. Is there a night game Wednesday? Maybe, but I know
usually there is, and I didn't check.
There usually was, but that was like it's always on a Sunday night, and then opening day's on a Monday. But my head's been all messed up with COVID with schedules. Let me see something here. You might be right. No, I was right. It's all Thursday. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the Mets are actually the night game on Thursday on ESPN.
Mets that's going to be great. The Grom.
You know what? For the first time, I don't have to take off work on opening day to see the Mets. So I usually don't like a night game, but I'll take it. I like
a night game on the opening day is good, right? Yeah, because like you said,
this year it is. Typically, baseball to me is meant to be played in the daytime. So opening day especially, I like it in the day, and I'm usually at the game if it's a home game. But this year, I'll take it. I don't have to miss work, so I'll take it. I'll hear the other games on the radio while I'm at work.
Well, we're definitely going to be going to a couple Phillies Mets games. I'm coming up there.
Absolutely, man. Hopefully things.
I haven't been to the stadium in a long time. It's probably been about 5 years.
You were at Citi Field.
Yeah, when I came up there last time, it was probably about 5 years ago, and we should go when it's. We should try to get tickets. Well, I know it's hard to pick ahead of time because guys get injured and you can't really look that far. But it would be cool to see like DeGrom and Wheeler, being that Wheeler was a former Met.
That'd be a great matchup to be at as Mets and Phillies fans. Absolutely. Well, we got to get to games in Philly and Citi Field this year. Hopefully, after not being able to go to anything last year, we could do that this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Without question.
I mean, we kind of both already voiced our opinions on prior show, but just to get into a little bit, like obviously you think the Mets are going to win the division. I know I threw my bombshell out there. I actually think the Phillies are, and I'm probably in the very minute minority there.
Oh, you're just not a little bit of a homer. I'm breaking balls.
Well, no, I really think they're going to shock everybody. I just do. And the more I get a feel for it, I think obviously a lot of things have to happen. But I agree. The Mets definitely have the deeper team. I mean, obviously offensively and pitching. I mean, the Phillies offense can definitely compete with the Mets offense. But when it comes to the pitching staffs, they're not even close. I mean,
see, I have a different opinion. I think the Mets offense is a lot better than Phillies because I think the Phillies have a lot more question marks with aging players like McCutchen. I'm not convinced Hoskins can come back. I think he could prove me wrong just as easily. Don't get me wrong. I'm not as big on Bryce Harper as you are. I think he could be an MVP player. I think he just as easily could hit 230. So I actually disagree somewhat. I think the Mets offense is a lot deeper, top to bottom, more consistent. I think the Phillies pitching is closer to the Mets pitching than you give credit for. So I kind of have a different take on it. I really think the Mets lineup is a lot deeper and better than the Phillies lineup. And if the Mets lineup was hitting in Citizens Bank Park, I think you'd see it even more because obviously that ballpark is a bandbox. So when you take Mets statistics versus Phillies statistics, and when they're kind of comparable, I think that shows you the depth of the Mets lineup at that ballpark. Citi Field's a tough place to hit. But I do think the Phillies pitching staff is better than you give credit for. I think that 1-2 punch of Nola and Wheeler at the top is big, very big. And I think if the Phillies can make the playoffs in a short series with Wheeler and Nola, anything can happen. That's kind of like the Mets having DeGrom at the top. You get into a 5-game series in the playoffs, and you could start throwing these guys 2-3 times in a 5 or 7 game series. All bets are off. So,
well, you definitely have a rooting interest since you drafted both of them.
Yeah, I have Nola and Wheeler on my fantasy team.
How about that?
My madness, Jack. There's a method.
How about that? I knew there was something up with you.
Yep.
I knew it.
Yep. Anyway, before we check out this week, I wanted to talk to you, dude. I'm reading a crazy good book. It just came out. Let's get into the metal a little bit, bro. I had been waiting with bated breath for this book to come out. It's nothing but a good time. Trying to pull up the cover here on my phone because I'm reading it digitally. Trying to remember who the writers are. Because I got to give credit where it's due. Hold on. It is well. First and foremost, well, here they are. It's Tom Boujour and Richard Beinstock. I recently followed them on Twitter. But this book's unbelievable, dude. It's an oral history of the 80s. I don't want to say glam metal scene because it has Brian Slagle talks a lot in this book who started the Metal Massacre compilation albums back in the day that had Metallica, Armored Saint. So it's not just like the glam, even though it mostly features like what we call hair bands now. It just features the LA metal scene, really. So obviously most of those bands were glam bands in LA at the time. But this book is an oral history, meaning it's not written like a typical book. It's written as if you're there in a room with like 70 or 80 people that were there telling you stories. It's all anecdotal. So it's like Don Dokken. Oh, I moved out to Germany. I recorded a demo. And then it's like George Lynch. Oh, when Don moved out to Germany, he stole one of our songs and then got a record deal. And then he came back to the United States asking us to join his band, which is a true story, by the way, in the book. I mean, it's written from the perspective of everybody who was there basically telling their stories. It's an unbelievable book. It's got a foreword by Corey Taylor. He does the foreword, which is not a shocker because if you know Corey, he's a huge 80s metal fan. And you didn't necessarily know that in the 90s when Slipknot came out because they had the masks on and they were just playing that new metal stuff. But, as, Corey's been in the public eye for the last 20 years, you've seen the covers that Stone Sour has done. They've done like Creeping Death. They've done like Judas Priest covers, all kinds of stuff. Motley Crue, I think they did Too Fast for Love. Stone Sour did. So, and Corey Taylor's played with Steel Panther at some shows at the Key Club in LA. So, Corey Taylor is a huge fan of just metal music in general and a real ambassador of the genre and the scene. So he does the forward. It's really cool. But, dude, this book, nothing but a good time. Check it out. It's on Amazon. I'm reading it. I typically read everything digitally now. But, I mean, get a hard copy, whatever, if you're into that. But this book is worth it, bro. Dude, I mean, I know tons of the stories, but it doesn't make me bored reading them again. And then there's so many things that you just didn't know. It's really fucking awesome, dude. I mean, it talks about like the origins of Wasp, like Blackie Lawless. How he was in the New York Dolls, and then he went and he started Wasp. He got Chris Holmes, and they used to like go to like one of their friends' garage and like build props for the stage show, the torture rack, and like these guys were broke as a joke. They didn't have enough money to, buy a Snickers bar, but yet somehow they were throwing steaks into the crowd, throwing raw meat. So and people were getting hit in the head with steaks. So many stories. Story of Poison moving from Pennsylvania out to LA to make it. I'm only about 20% through the book, bro.
How many pages is the book?
It's got some girth, man. It's like 550 pages.
Now, who did you say wrote it?
It's a fast read.
Who wrote it again?
What are these guys? Hold on, bro. It is Tom Boujour and Richard Beinstock. Total fans of the genre. I wasn't familiar with them until I started reading the book. But, dude, it's called Nothing But a Good Time. And it's unbelievable. It's an oral history of the LA metal scene. So I recommend everybody pick it up out there. I just wanted to get into that for a minute, man. You got to read it, Jay. It's unbelievable. Awesome.
I mean, I'm definitely going to buy it. I haven't really read a book recently. Obviously, I was reading the last book I was reading was the Alice in Chains book, which I still
which we talked about on the show. Yeah.
Definitely got to finish that up, but I'll make that my next priority.
This book's a quick read. I just started reading it this week, like here and there after work, and I'm already over 100 pages in. I mean, it's
addictive.
It's one of those quick, and it's just quick reading. Because it's a fun read. It's a great book.
Now it's funny because speaking of 80s metal, well, I don't consider Van Halen necessarily 80s,
but they're more 70s metal.
Yeah, so we had
into that too. Not to cut you off, but it talks about how Van Halen basically was like the template. You know what I mean? Like the Big Bang was Van Halen, and everything spawned from Van Halen after that, as far as that scene. You know what I'm saying? Like they were what do they call it? I don't know, ground zero genre, whatever. But yeah, I mean, everything spawned from Van Halen. It gets into that. It talks about Ozzy when he found Randy Rhoads. We were just talking about it with Matt Stanley. I brought this up a little bit when we just did the episode of Gavel Will Rock with Matt Stanley when we recently debated Blizzard of Oz versus Van Halen 1. Because I just started the book when we did that episode. Like I said, everything I've read was in the past week. I just started it like that day when we had Matt on, or a couple days prior to that. So, cool little stories, man. I had no idea how far back Dana Strum, the bass player from Slaughter. When you think of Slaughter, you think of them as almost being one of the bands that came in at the back end of that scene. Their debut album was like Stick It To You was like 1990. 1990.
I was going to say 89, 90.
Anyway, Dana Strum, man, I didn't realize how deep his roots went into the scene. He was the one that actually convinced Randy Rhoads to audition for Ozzy, and he didn't want to. And then Randy Rhoads' mom said, "No, you got to take this opportunity," because Randy Rhoads didn't want to leave Quiet Riot. He was dedicated to them. Quiet Riot only had a record deal in Japan. So the first two Quiet Riot records are imports in this country. They're still not released here. That's why Metal Health, for all intents and purposes, is Quiet Riot's debut in the United States. But the Randy Rhoads records, Quiet Riot and Quiet Riot 2, you can hear them on YouTube. There was a compilation album that came out in the 90s, I think, the Quiet Riot, the Randy Rhoads years. I actually have that CD somewhere. But I remember there was like a live track on there, Laughing Gas, and it was like a Randy solo was in there, and it was live. and you could actually hear like early versions of the Suicide Solution riff that he would play in his solos, like when he was in Quiet Riot. Like a lot of the Ozzy stuff, like he actually was toying around with those riffs a few years earlier with Quiet Riot. But Dana Strum, man, who knew? And that's in the book. So, like I said, Ozzy's in there, Randy Rhoads. The whole plane crash stuff is in the book. I mean, this book is awesome, bro. That's why I said it's not just like the glam. I mean, it's like everything about the genre going from like Van Halen on. Van Halen is basically ground zero. You know what I mean? For that scene. So check it out, bro.
Yeah, so you haven't, obviously you'll have, well, I'm going to check it out, but I'm curious as to where it'll end, like the journey as far as.
Oh, well, you know what? I was reading in the forward, not Corey Taylor's forward, the introduction by the authors. They actually talked about while they were writing the book how it was such an arduous process traveling the world to interview all the people that they interviewed, and how time consuming it was, and how the book just took on a life of its own. It became its own beast. And while they were writing the book, they were thinking that they were going to end like when Nirvana. So Van Halen is like the Big Bang. Nirvana was the dinosaurs going extinct. You know, the meteor that hit the Earth. That was the extinction event. So they were going to end it there. But then they said, you know, after all the work we put in, it would be such a shame to end the book on a down note. So the book actually, I haven't gotten it to there. Obviously, I'm 100 pages in out of a 550-page book. But they did mention in the intro that they just ended up deciding that they would continue the book up, you know, and then talk about how now you have Guns N' Roses having a $2 billion world tour, Metallica's touring, you know, a lot of these bands have reunited and still playing. So it ends on a positive. I haven't gotten there yet, but I know that that's what they did. They kept going up until today with the bands. So
that's really cool. I mean, I'm definitely going to check that out. You know, I love reading about, you know, that era because that was us, man.
It was the funnest time to live. It was the funnest.
There's nothing better than reading about, because every time that I go back and I read these stories, it brings me back to my childhood, like when we were growing up, like that time. Obviously, you know, we've talked about it, but you kind of got into metal a little younger age than me, and that was only because obviously your influences, but you were the one that got me into metal. So, you know, I'll still never forget those, you know, when I, you know, your cousin's room listening, you know, to those first albums that I heard. And it was just like, it was something that, an experience that unless you were there, I can't explain it to anybody today.
Hey, like it was like an experience that could move mountains spiritually.
You had to be there. Like we literally, like, we'll never have, that'll never happen again. I don't see it anyway. I mean, unless some miraculous, you know, Big Bang happens again as far as, you know, music.
Well, it's just not, because the music's not there and the technology has destroyed it. You know, nobody's sitting down zoning out to records anymore and getting lost in it. And plus, because everybody's so accessible now with social media, just like this, there's no rock stars anymore. I mean, part of the things that made rock stars was the aura, that you couldn't see them anywhere and that you had to wonder what they were like. I'll give a great example. I remember when Appetite for Destruction came out, and I remember hearing Mr. Brownstone, and because Axl sings in that deep register, you know, I get up around 7, get out of bed around 9. People actually thought it was a different singer. They thought Slash was doing that vocal, you know, and then they thought Axl was singing the part, you know, where it gets high. Stuck it in the middle and I shot it in the middle and it blew me out of my mind. Like, it was like, because you, and the reason it was is because you couldn't just go on a computer and see these guys. It wasn't like MySpace and YouTube and Facebook and this and that. It was an art. The only way you heard it was by getting the album, or if your friend showed it to you. And then you looked at the artwork and you were fascinated by, like, who are these guys, man? All you did is see a picture or a piece of artwork, and then you heard it and it moved you. You got goosebumps from it. And there was like, they were like larger than life. That was what a rock star was, because it wasn't so accessible. It was something that was distant, and it was like, oh, you wanted to reach out and grab it. That was like the experience of being there live. It almost reminds me of going to my first Mets game in a sense, because I remember sitting like way up in the upper deck at Shea Stadium, and Shea Stadium was so big and the seats were far away from the field. It wasn't like today's stadiums where everything is built upwards and inward, so you're always on top of the field. Stadiums were like that, especially Shea. So when you were in the upper deck, bro. The players looked like ants on the field. But as an 11-year-old kid or whatever, going to a Mets game, sitting up there and looking down, it made them seem larger than life because you were so far from them. I guess that's kind of like the same feeling. When everything's so in front of you, it doesn't have the aura anymore. Like when you have kids just like jamming all the time in their bedrooms and it's on YouTube, it's not the same. Back in the day, guys in bands played with their friends in garages, and then maybe they were able to get a gig in their area in a club. And then maybe they started getting a buzz in that area and started playing bars and clubs. And then people would say, hey, did you see that band so-and-so? And then their friends would tell them about it. And then maybe some record execs would go out and look. And then the only way you heard them is if they put a demo out and then maybe an album out. And your friends told you about them. And then they said, hey, come over to my house. I got this new record. And you heard it. And then when the album came out, it might have a cool artwork or a cool picture. And then maybe the lyrics were in there. So you'd hear the album and you'd listen to it, looking at the artwork and reading all the lyrics. And it would take you on this musical journey. And then the only way you'd actually see them would be getting tickets and seeing the concert. And then the concert was so freaking loud, it would blow your eardrums out. And there'd be bombastic explosions, and it would be an event. It wasn't just guys staring at the floor. It was like larger than life. That's what it was, and that's why we got into it, dude. And that's why it meant so much. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
And like you said, it's just not the same. Like you hit on it. Like buying a CD and actually reading all the lyrics and reading like everything about it.
Prior to that, we were doing it over records.
Well, no, but I know I got that. But I'm just saying, like in general, like I remember when I saw the Appetite for Destruction, like the inside, like when you open the
like the robot rape scene, yes.
Oh my goodness!
Which was the original cover that got banned, which I have on a record upstairs, by the way. I actually have that original print, Appetite for Destruction vinyl with the Appetite for Destruction painting on the cover. But yeah, dude, that was the other thing. You just nailed it. It scared you. It made your parents not want you to have it. And it wasn't because it was some rapper saying F this vulgar pornographic lyrics. It wasn't. It was like almost like even though the Guns N' Roses did have F words and stuff, it was like because it was so rare to hear that kind of language on a record, it was so much more powerful. Like when he said, so fucking easy, it's so easy. And you were hearing the F word, you were like, holy shit. He's saying fuck on the album. And it was crazy. It was crazy.
Aaron, it was forbidden.
Dangerous. It was dangerous.
It was forbidden.
It was dangerous. And your parents didn't want you to have it. And that's what made it so much cooler. But that's another point that we can make. Now, because everything is so raunchy with this rap and shit, everybody's desensitized to it. It doesn't have the effect. Like it was like when Guns N' Roses didn't curse just for the sake of cursing. They cursed because it was part of the art. It was like it was emphasizing a point in a song, or the lyrics were telling a story. Like My Michelle, your daddy worked in porno. Now that mommy's not around, she used to love her heroin, but now she's underground. It was a story about somebody Axl knew. So it wasn't just, it wasn't just rude for the sake of being rude. It was telling a story. It wasn't like just pornographic rap lyrics. So it was powerful, and it was an art, and you learned something. So much, everything I learned, bro, not everything, but almost everything I've learned was hearing fucking music and like reading the lyrics and then wondering what hell they were talking about. Like estranged. I was like, what does estranged mean? Looked up the word. I mean, it's like I learned my vocabulary from rock and roll, bro. I learned about relationships from rock and roll. I learned about drug use from rock and roll. Good, bad. I learned about it from rock and roll. You learn more from that than you ever learned in school. Kids now with the music that's out, they don't learn anything because, I see kids texting now. They don't even use words. They don't use complete sentences. It's like jibber jabber. It's awful. Anyway, we're on to a whole other I'm on a tangent. Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, no, I wanted to let you go on your rant there.
I could go too long, so I'll stop.
Well, I'll just hit on it real quick before we close out. Like, I remember when my mom actually threw out my CD collection. Actually, it was my tapes.
I remember that.
I had about 25 tapes, and it was like after my mom got through with it, I had like 4 left. I mean, but like just that whole thing, like, yeah, and you would never see that today. Because
But here's
first of all,
the thing.
there are no
If
tapes.
your mom went through those albums now, she wouldn't throw any of them out because if you compared it to the shit the kids hear now, she'd want her kids listening to that.
Agreed.
It wasn't even bad.
Yeah, there was no WAP.
It was just, no WAP. It was just bad enough to scare the shit out of your parents and make it cool. That's all it was. And guess what? Our parents said the same thing about the shit they were listening to. At one point, parents were telling their kids not to listen to Elvis because he was swiveling his hips.
Yeah,
Think about
there's always going to be something that is, looked down on. But let's face it, like you said, I mean, we don't have to go any further. Like I said, it's just never going to happen again.
It's never going to be the way it was because there's no art to it.
It sucks, man.
It's too accessible. There's no and like I said, the aura. Like I'm not a Kiss guy, but think about all those years when nobody knew what the guys in Kiss looked like. I don't know that would ever be able to be possible now. I guess the closest thing was that Ghost. Nobody knew who they were, but nobody really cared anyway because it was like they weren't Kiss. And again, they were all over the internet all the time, and it wasn't like they were characters per se. Like it was like, whatever his name is, I can't remember. And then all the other guys are just demons, so they didn't really have names. Like Kiss had 4 guys: the Star Child, Paul Stanley, the Spaceman, Ace Frehley, the Cat, Peter Criss, and how do I forget? The Demon, Gene Simmons. How did I forget Gene? But anyway, you see, but they were characters. There was 4 of them, so you could identify with each one.
Yeah, Ghost.
You didn't know who they were for over a decade. That was awesome. It was fucking awesome. I'm not even a Kiss guy. You know what I mean? It will never be again, bro.
I did see Kiss live once, and that was obviously in their comeback tour.
I've seen them live too, but not in the 70s.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't think there would have been if I could go back in time, that would be definitely on my bucket list.
Well, that would be awesome to experience it then before anybody knew who they really were when it was happening. But again, those are those things that will never happen again. They're time capsules, Anyway, we'll end it there. Bro, another great show. As always, enjoyed it. Looking forward to baseball. Looking forward to the NFL draft. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Rock on.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.